Hi everyone. So one of the most common questions that I get asked this in so many different ways. What's more important, what I eat or how much I eat? So should I count calories? Should I not count calories? Should I just pay attention to what I'm eating? So I'm going to start off by telling you a story about Beback and Makolo. They are two gorillas that lived at the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo, and they were dying of heart disease, which happens to be the #1 cause of death in warehoused gorillas. Warehoused gorillas are gorillas who live in zoos. So Beback and Makolo were no exception. They were dying of heart disease, and the zoologists there were really concerned. They wanted to figure out, why do warehoused gorillas die more commonly of heart disease when in fact wild gorillas do not die of heart disease. They don't die of any chronic illnesses. They don't die of diabetes, heart disease, anything like that. Yet that's the #1 cause of death for gorillas kept in captivity. Also, another odd behavior with warehoused gorillas is that they pull out their hair and they eat it, and they'll regurgitate that they'll eat the hair and regurgitate it, and then they regurgitate their food up to 4 times an hour. Never seen in wild gorillas. Absolutely never witnessed in wild gorillas. So this has been perplexing zoologists for a long time. And I actually interviewed these zoologists, and it was just fascinating to me. So when I asked them about Beback and Makolo, they said, well, we were really concerned because this is a problem worldwide. So they wanted to know what was going on with these gorillas and what they could do to fix it. They decided to start with their diet. And when I asked them why, what was wrong with their diet, they said, well, warehoused gorillas in captivity are commonly fed nutritional cookies. And I was like, what? Why would you give them cookies? And she said, because it was with good intention. That was how we could make sure that the gorillas were all getting a standard diet that included all of their vitamins and minerals and amino acids and all that stuff. And it sort of reminded me of children's vitamins, right? Isn't that the intention? The intention is good, but we're loading them up with a bunch of sugar and artificial colors and things like that, which are horrible for them. So I'm like, okay, I sort of understand that. We do it with the right intention. She said, so we went back to their wild diet. We actually started giving Beback and Makolo a natural diet of wild greens, nuts, berries, seeds, flax, and bamboo. And the cookies, they were able to just take those and gobble them up really fast. But with their natural diet, what we did is we started scattering it around their habitat. So they had to move more. They had to actually move around their habitat. And it took them about 75% of the day to eat it. And a really interesting thing happened. Within 1 year, the gorillas lost 65 pounds each. But here's the really interesting part. They were eating double the calories. They lost 65 pounds each, eating double the calories of the cookies. Okay, all of their neurotic behavior stopped, which of course made me think of our patients. Okay, so we have patients that come into our clinics, regurgitating their food, pulling out their hair, trichotillomania. They're anxious. They've got these neurotic behaviors because of anxiety. And so it made me think, were these gorillas crazy, or were they being poisoned? It's food for thought, right? So when they changed their diet, all of those neurotic behaviors stopped. Beback reversed his heart disease. Makolo radically slowed the progression, and they lost 65 pounds each. So that poses the question, what's more important, what you eat or how much you eat? And the truth is, both are right and both are wrong. They both contain, information that's right and wrong. You can't eat 4,000 calories of healthy food and think that you're going to stay at a healthy, normal weight unless you're burning that much. You can't eat 4,000 calories no matter how healthy your diet is and think that you are not going to create some inflammation and oxidative stress to your body because it can't process that much unless you're actually burning that much, which most of us can't, right? However, that wasn't the story. That wasn't the point with Beback and Makolo. The point was they were eating very little. Okay, so they were sort of on this restricted calorie diet when they were eating the cookies. They were eating very little food, yet they were overweight. They had inflammation. They had all of this trouble going on in their lives, like vomiting up their food and pulling out their hair. And they were unhappy and dying of heart disease, eating a restricted calorie diet. So that reminds me of things like Twinkie diets and stupid stuff come on, common sense. Stupid stuff where you're eating restricted calories and thinking that calories in is calories out, and it shouldn't matter. It's all about how many calories you eat. And if you eat 800 calories, you can eat whatever you want. And the truth is that's not true. You'll lose weight initially, but eventually you're going to start increasing inflammation in your body. You're going to increase oxidative stress, inflammation, and all of these bad processes that happen, and you're jacking up insulin. And so when you do that, you're messing up your hormones of metabolism like leptin and ghrelin, which tell your brain that you're satisfied and make you feel hungry all the time. So all of those processes get out of whack. And then pretty soon, when you've got inflammation, high blood sugar, your hormones are out of whack, you feel hungry all the time, you can't possibly be healthy and stay thin, and I don't care how much you're eating. Pretty soon you're on like an HCG diet where you're taking shots and eating 500 calories a day, but you never learned how to eat right. Hopefully that makes sense. Now on the flip side of that, Bebek and Makolo got to eat double the calories and be super healthy and lose weight and stay healthy, get super healthy, and they stopped their neurotic behaviors, they felt much better. That doesn't mean they went to that opposite extreme of like, I get to eat as much as I want. But see, here's the cool thing. When you're eating the right foods, most of that OCD feeling, those behaviors go away. Okay, that was the whole point of this. You get to eat a whole lot more when you're eating the right foods, and it's going to rebalance a lot of those hormones of metabolism so that you don't feel as hungry, so that you don't feel as anxious, so that you don't crave those foods anymore. It'll break that sugar addiction. So yeah, you get to eat more. You don't get to just eat unlimited numbers of calories. So both are right, both are wrong. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But it still is a measure. Calories are a measure of energy. So if you're eating more than you can possibly burn off, you're still going to end up gaining weight. So I want to just point that out. And there's another important thing here. You have to know the exchange rates. Okay, so I was arguing with somebody about, okay, calories are like money. And that's true. Calories are like money. You want to think about the value of what you're taking in. Absolutely true. So it's like, is it worth eating that many? They were talking about the numbers, like numbers. Should I eat that much? Can I burn that much off? It's like money. Unfortunately, it's a little more complicated than that. It's sort of like traveling to a foreign country, and that money has different exchange rates. So that's how I want you to think of calories from now on. When you travel, you have to think about, is your money the same value in other countries? Otherwise, you better be paying attention to how much you spend, right? So because a euro is not the same as a dollar, is not the same as a peso. And some places you get a whole lot more, and some places you get a whole lot less. So that's what you want to be thinking about with calories. Good calories are worth a whole lot more. Bad calories, worth a whole lot less. And they cause a whole lot of trouble. So know the exchange rate of what you're eating. So they don't matter as a myth. Calories in, calories out is a myth. And all calories are the same. That's a myth. Hopefully you understand that now. But here's something I want you to take away. If you eat healthy, you do get to eat a whole lot more like Bebek and Makolo. So when you're eating the right food, you're decreasing inflammation. You're settling down your insulin. You're increasing and balancing those hormones of metabolism. And so that is why you get to eat more, okay? And you're eating nutrient-dense foods, which give you what you need, so you're not going to crave as much. That's why. Okay, I got disconnected for a second. Hopefully you're back. Intermittent fasting is another thing that comes up a lot in this topic. And intermittent fasting is really the idea that it's not about fasting long term, it's about fasting for 12 hours at night. So if you finish eating your last meal at 7 o'clock at night, you start eating at 7 o'clock again in the morning. And it is a good idea. If you can get yourself trained to do that, it's a good idea. And here's why. Your brain cleans itself. It turns on a process called autophagy in your brain. So it's like little Pac-Man cleaning up all of those plaques that are responsible for Alzheimer's disease and dementia and stuff like that. That doesn't get turned on until you've actually been fasting for a while. Also, it settles down that insulin response, that blood sugar, and the inflammation. So it does a lot of good things when you can do intermittent fasting. We're not fans of long-term fasting, juice fast, don't like it. Especially if you're active, because we want you exercising. We'd rather you eat clean all the time, but we don't want you eating no protein, because it's not really good for your body to have none. You just make sure you're eating super clean. You can like do the eliminating meat type thing, like don't have any animal protein, but make sure you're getting some plant-based protein powder, stuff like that. Structure meals to fit you. So people are always like, well, what's better? Should I eat a whole bunch of small meals, or can I eat a few big meals? I don't actually really care. There's theories good and bad to both, but let's face it, you might not be able to choose. So like my daughter, she goes to school. She doesn't really get to choose. So snack goes by so fast, she doesn't have time. And then, lunch, she's got lunch. So breakfast, we make her a healthy breakfast. She gets a pretty decent sized lunch. And by the time dinner comes around, she's hungry. So same thing, I help her figure out for her basal metabolic rate, which you can look up on the internet, figure out your basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories you burn with doing nothing. Figure out what you burn with your activity. Now, if you take in more than that, you're going to gain weight. Okay, so we always make it about strength and health, never about being skinny. We don't ever want to make it about being skinny because that just starts bad health and bad thoughts. So it's always about being strong. And so it's like, look, to be your strongest and your most fit, this is what you want to stay within. So I'm like, I don't care if you divide it up in 3 meals or you divide it up in 5 meals. The reason we will tell people to eat 5 small meals when they first start out is because they're addicted to food and they are hungry all the time because their hormones are out of whack. So we want them eating small amounts so they're never hungry when they start. Eventually, most people aren't as hungry and they really don't want to eat that often. Either way is okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Keep inflammation, blood sugar under control. That's what we just talked about. You do that with the foods you eat, and so the quality of the foods you eat and sort of how you eat. If you do that intermittent fasting, that's also going to help. And I already said know your exchange rate.